What's going on, everybody? This is Sports Past, Present, and Future podcast. Once again, it's me and Landon here. We're gonna be talking about the NBA offseason so far. So we've got the NBA draft winners and losers, and free agency winners and losers. So I've got a couple teams for each. So, and I know Landon does too. So Landon, we'll start with you on your NBA draft winners.
So for my draft winners, I think the one that kind of hit me off the bat, I won't say they were a winner for the overall, first and second round, but in the first round, I thought the Lakers were a winner, getting Dalton Connect all the way into 17th pick. I did not expect him to fall out of the top 10. Just watching him all year round, I thought he was one of the best well-rounded players in college basketball. He has an NBA-ready body. I think he's 22, 23 years old, so he's already got some maturity to him. I think he's going to impact the game of the NBA right off the bat. He's got a three-level scorer. He can get to the rim. He's got a really good mid-range jump shot because he can elevate off the floor really well. And he's got a really good three-point shot. He can shoot from anywhere on the floor. He can pull it up from deep, or he can pull it right at the three-point line. So I thought they won the first round there. I thought another winner was probably the Timberwolves. I really liked the trade they did with the Spurs to move up in the draft and get Rob Dillingham at number 8. I think one thing that if you looked at the Timberwolves in the playoffs that they lacked was another scorer off the bench to replace Anthony Edwards when he came off the court. I think Dillingham can get that for you. I think he can get the job done. A lot of people are going to question his size, but I think there were games in Kentucky where, his size didn't really matter. One play in particular that, I go to all the time is that play against LSU where he split the two defenders through contact and finished a crazy layup and won. And right there, I just think that, his size, he might be small when you look at him, but he's got a heart and he's gonna power through and he's gonna score. It doesn't matter what his size is, just because of his capabilities to put the ball on the floor with a Kyrie-like handle and with a Kyrie-like finish. And then I also like their pick later in the draft with Terrence Shannon Jr. from Illinois. I thought he would have been a higher draft pick had he didn't go through those allegations earlier in the year. So I think they got a steal there with Terrence Shannon. So I really like them. I think those would be my two winners of the first, and then the Timberwolves as well.
I agree with both of your picks. The Lakers, we'll start out. That's who you started out with. I don't need to say much else besides what you said. The Lakers just completely stole Dalton Connect at 17. The only reason why he fell is because of his age, but the NBA needs guys that have experience and also can score the basketball. And like you said, Dalton Connect is a 3-level scorer. Can even play defense too. Like, the Lakers made a great decision picking him up, and everyone else will regret that decision with passing him up. And then, of course, getting Bronny will keep LeBron around, and maybe Bronny develops good. With the player development with the Lakers has been solid throughout the years. At least I think so. You just look at their past summer league teams and then see how those guys have developed. I mean, I think it was Lonzo Ball's rookie year that you look back at, like, their summer league team of, like, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Alex Caruso, Zubac, and Lonzo Ball. Like, that's all of those dudes are multiple contract guys in the NBA. And that's what you try to do with player development, is get guys that build guys up for them to get more than one contract. And so maybe Bronny can see, like, how D'Lo plays, how even just guys like Austin Reeves play, because he's going to be under those guys, and who knows. But also, I like your Timberwolves pick, because the Timberwolves got Rob Dillingham for 2 middle schoolers, technically, because they were 2030 picks, which I thought the Spurs did not make the best decision, but maybe the Spurs have a future thing in mind for that one, like future decision, whether that be with a future trade asset with getting a superstar or just unloading those. But the Timberwolves got 2 proven scorers and just solid players in general with Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon. I liked Terrence Shannon a lot whenever he was at Illinois. He was the only reason some games that like Illinois stayed relevant in games. And he's athletic. He's probably like 6'5", 6'6". I don't have it pulled out. But and then Dillingham is a proven scorer as well. The three that you didn't say that I wanted to talk about is first the Jazz. The Jazz picked Cody Williams at 10th, Isaiah Collier at 29th, and Kyle Filipowski at 32. I think Cody Williams is a solid like small forward, power forward for them. He did good things at Colorado. I mean, you saw him play in person, so you can back that up. But yeah, that was a solid pick at 10. Everyone around that like 10, 11, 12 area was definitely wanting Cody Williams to slide to them. I know that like the Thunder really wanted him to play with his brother, but I think the Jazz got a perfect like 3 because I can't think of a 3 for the Jazz at the top of my head. They've got all young guys. Isaiah Collier at 29, he was a projected top like probably 10 pick coming into the year, and then he just got hurt, but he still had stellar play at USC. I don't think he should have dropped to 29. I think the Jazz made a good pickup there, and Collier and Keontae George can develop with each other, and even under Colin Sexton, who's still there. Like I said, the Jazz are so young, and they've got so many like good potential with all of their players, and that's a Danny Ainge thing for you right there, because Danny Ainge is the GM there. And then Kyle Filipowski at 32. Filipowski has been a solid big for Duke the past 2 years. I'm not the biggest fan of him, and even like this story coming out about his girlfriend's a little concerning, but he can still put the ball in the hoop, and he has good potential. My last one that I have on here is the Grizzlies. They got Zach Edey at pick 9, which that's their biggest pick. I think that is a genius play for them, because now they've got Zach Edey, who is 7'4" and will probably block 2 to 3 shots a game. You've got 2 of the past Defensive Player of the Years on your team as well, with Marcus Smart and Jaren Jackson Jr. The Grizzlies have set themselves up for a good future with those 3 guys, along with John Morant, Desmond Bane, and even G.G. Jackson, who had a solid rookie year. So getting a 5 who can block shots and get the tip dunks and just get the rebounds and put the ball in the hoop if you miss, like that's what they need. And so at pick 39, they also got Jalen Wells, and one of my personal favorites. I don't know if he'll stay on a 2-way, but is trading for Cam Spencer at pick 53, the UConn product. I thought he had a heck of a year, and I think that he deserves everything that he got. So I talked a lot. Where are you at on NBA draft losers, Landon?
I think one that stands off for me compared to others would be the Bucks. With Damian Lillard getting older, Giannis in the middle of his prime, this is a win now situation for the Bucks, and I don't really think they took advantage of that, especially with their first pick in A.J. Johnson. He's a 19-year-old player, weighs about 160 pounds. He's a guard. Only averaged 2.9 points per game last year playing in the NBL, which I think is the Australia League, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Okay. And so, if with the Bucks, you either here need to make a trade to get, a better asset depth-wise off the bench, or you just need to trade the pick to garner some more picks later on in the future that you can use for trade assets. So I don't really know why they picked A.J. Johnson here. Obviously, I don't know much about him from highlights perspective because I don't watch any NBL at all. And I just frankly haven't heard of him before. But just going throughout his profile, looking at his young age, his frame, just his stats that he put up in a professional league with some higher talented players. You can kind of see how he's going to translate into the NBA, but also he could shock me and otherwise. But I thought the Bucks needed to either go with someone more of an impact here, or trade the pick to get a little bit older, some more depth, some more experience, to go alongside Giannis or Dame. So I don't think they did a good job here of surrounding their two superstars in a win now situation. I think, like I said, with Dame getting older, and Giannis being in his prime. I think another loser for me would probably be the Trailblazers. They drafted Donovan Clingan with the 7th pick of the first round, and then after that traded both of their second-round picks. I'm not exactly sure what they traded them for. I can't remember if it was picks or players. So obviously trading your picks for more assets is not a bad thing. So I respect those decisions, especially in the second round with a draft that's been labeled as a weaker draft class. So you might just want to take your chances on getting a deeper, better draft class in the future. But Donovan Clingan, I think he's going to be a really good player in the league. I really do. I think he's got the developmental pieces, as we saw in college, from his first year to his second year at UConn, and how big of an impact he was, especially in the NCAA tournament in the bigger games. But the thing that just doesn't make sense to me is that, they got DeAndre Ayton, who they traded for. They got Robert Williams now, and now you add on a third center. And so now you're just going to start mixing up these minutes, and you're going to be taking minutes away from some guys that you're paying big money to, and now they're not going to be playing as much. And so my thinking is, what's the reasoning behind trading for these guys, or trading away certain pieces and then paying these guys big money just to go out there and draft another young big? I think they could have picked up a little bit of a depth piece at shooting guard, or even small forward to play behind Simmons or Avida, just because of the injury history of Shaedon Sharpe. And then also their backup shooting guard is Delano Baton. And so I think they could have gone somewhere there. And so for me, I would say those are my two losers of the draft.
I think with the Blazers pick, they definitely had their eyes on someone else, and he got picked earlier. My guess with that is Ron Holland, because that is an area where they could have used a backup point guard. Because I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they traded away Malcolm Brogdon, but I could be wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't see him on their roster anymore, so I think you're correct on that.
Yeah, so I think that the Blazers wanted to pick someone like Ron Holland, or just one of the other guys that got picked, and their plans got kind of screwed, and they didn't have a backup plan, so they picked the best player available. I totally agree with your pick there, because, like you just mentioned, yes, Donovan Clingan will develop well with Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton, but just why? Those are three bigs that can't really shoot, and so, you can't put them on the floor together, because in the NBA now you need four, maybe even 5 shooters on your team. I've got a couple losers that are different. I definitely, of course, agree with yours. First one is the Pistons. They picked Ron Holland at 5. I think that Ron Holland was supposed to go top 10, and I feel like if the Pistons wanted Ron Holland so bad, they could have traded down and gotten something out of it for that 5th pick. Because, you could have done a Luka Trae Young situation where he traded down and still got the pick. Like I said, I feel like it was just a grab that the Pistons didn't really know what they wanted to do. Because they've got all the young pieces, they just needed some vets. And Ron Holland will probably be a good player. He was projected top 3 like before this year, and then he got hurt and played for a atrocious G League Ignite team that won a couple games. But I just feel like Ron Holland would have went lower than probably like 8 to 10 range, and they picked him at 5. But that's just me. And then the Pistons also picked Bobby Clintman at 37. I have for my next team, it is a, in parentheses, maybe a loser. And it's actually the next pick 6. The Hornets got Tijane Saloon at pick 6. I feel like that was another player that was projected to fall lower than 6. And then the Hornets decided to pick him up. I thought that the Hornets were going to get Donovan Clingan with this pick, and I feel like Saloon was maybe another player that the Blazers were trying to get at 7. But I feel like regardless, this player was going to fall, and I feel like the Hornets need more size than they do 2s or 3s, because of course you've got LaMelo Ball, you've got Brandon Miller. I'm blanking on a couple of the Hornets aren't very deep, so I guess anybody will help their team. But Mark Williams was the only big that they have, and Mark Williams was hurt a decent amount. I feel like Donovan Clingan would have helped their team. And the Hornets also drafted KJ Simpson at 42. My last team that I have on the losers, and it's going to sound a little surprising, but just because of the amount of picks that they have, but it's the Raptors. So the Raptors had 4 picks. They drafted Jacoby Walter at 19, Jonathan Mogbo at 31, Jamal Sheed at 45, and Ulrich Chomchi at 57. Now, I think that these picks are like pretty decent picks. Like, I think that Walter and like Jamal Sheed, like I watched them in March Madness and thought they had good games. But looking at the Raptors, like, when are these rookies going to play? Because their opportunities are going to be limited. You saw a player like Grady Dick in his first year just like not have the best opportunities. And I feel like with getting Quickly and RJ Barrett, and I'm trying to think who are bigs, which they could have gotten a big with this pick in 19. Now, the options were more limited at pick 19 than top 10, but maybe they could have traded up. But I feel like with these rookies, their opportunities are going to be very limited just because of like the guard play with the Raptors. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I just feel like the Raptors could have traded these picks away and gotten more capital for the future. So, we're done with the NBA draft here. Do you agree or disagree with any of my picks on winners or losers?
No, I agree with all yours, especially the Hornets, because I don't really see the direction that they're going in right now, especially with that pick. I think they could have got a lot more value out of that pick than what they did. So I really agree with you on that one, and I agree with you on the rest of them too as well. I just, I get that this wasn't very deep of a class, but sometimes you got to look at the future and maybe do what the Spurs did and trade for a middle schooler if you're not really confident with that pick, because picks like that could be a make or break for your job at that point.
Yeah, I was telling people like all the way up, because it was in draft projections for a while that I wanted the Spurs to get Dillingham at 4 and then get Dalton Connect at 8, which I feel like that would have been a nasty team, but they ended up getting Chris Paul, which is a great point guard for them. and along with Stephon Castle, who Stephon Castle will have a good career, like shadowing Chris Paul for his first year. Like, you can't ask for anything better than that. But
I think my question, and I heard this on ESPN Radio the other day driving to work. Is Chris Paul done ring chasing now, or is there a legit chance that the Spurs could do something in the next year or two before Chris Paul rides off into the sunset?
I think they could be a play-in team this year. I know that's a bold statement, but Chris Paul's I know that he hasn't won a ring, but he's a certified winner. And on his past teams, like the before and after, I remember seeing a graphic about this. Every team that he's been on, the year before they had less of a win percentage than they did the year after. And even with the Warriors not winning the play-in, like, they still had less wins than last year. And same thing with the Rockets, same thing with the Clippers, same thing with the Hornets. So I could see them possibly making a play-in. Wemby, the sky's the limit for him. Chris Paul is going to give him the rock like no other. You've got Devin Vassell, who is solid. You've got Keldon Johnson, who is solid. You've got Jeremy Sohan, who is solid. And Stephon Castle. And even you've got Trey Jones, who I like Trey Jones as a good point guard. And then I'm pretty sure they have Julian Champagne, who is a good shooter. I'm pretty sure he's the one from Pittsburgh a couple years ago. And they've just got a couple shooters off the bench besides that. I think that it's not that Chris Paul has given up ring chasing. I think that he wants a role because he did not like his role in Golden State.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and I also think this will be good for Wemby too. I think Wemby is going to learn a lot from Chris, as far as how a big can play with a guard like Chris Paul, where he's just smart and can run an offense, and he's going to be able to pinpoint some things for Wemby that Wemby may not see in a game or film. So I think it's going to be good for him as well, and Stephon Castle in his development.
Yeah, I think that Wemby will find spots on the floor, like to get open and stuff, that he did not learn from Pro Bowl in France or even this past year. I know that he definitely learned a lot, and he's willing to learn. Like, he's a workhorse. He's not like an arrogant player at all. I was actually looking on like Instagram the other day, like how he's working with Jamal Crawford a little bit. Like, he just like likes to take in all the information that he can from whoever and just build off of it. And I think that he will learn from Chris Paul real well. So, do you have anything else to add with that?
No, I agree with you, man.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go to our NBA offseason / free agency winners. So we'll start with you. Who are some of your NBA free agency winners?
I think right off the bat, and it was really early in free agency, the Thunder. They've been wanting to get rid of Giddey for a little bit now. I think his production since his first year, he did really well as a rookie. I thought he came into the league and really showed his capability. But since then, it's just kind of, flatlined or tailed off a little bit. And so for them to get him off for nothing in return for Alex Caruso, I think was a steal. I think he just adds to who the Thunder are. They're a tough defensive team. And then he can also just go in there and he's going to rebound, he's going to fight, he's going to be a tough player. I think him alongside Lou Dort is just going to be an incredible 1-2 punch defensively and physically. And then also getting Isaiah Hartenstein from the Knicks. They got him for a pretty steep price, but, the Thunder and what Alex Presley have been doing, behind the scenes, just with their assets and with their salary cap, I think they positioned themselves well to be able to spend that money. For someone to come off the bench for Chet Holmgren, and just add a little bit of a different kind of play style off the bench. You got Holmgren, who's he can space the floor out as a stretch five, skinnier player, whereas Hartenstein's, the down low bruiser type of guy. And so I think the Thunder, only got better. And if Shea can, do what he did last season and do it again this year, I think they are going to be locks for Western Conference Finals, if not a Finals appearance. So I really like what they did. Another winner for me was the Knicks. I think, getting Mikal Bridges was huge. I think retaining OG Anunoby was huge. Now, both of them came at a very big price. They lost Hartenstein, which hurts a little bit because you just don't really know how healthy Mitchell Robinson's going to be on a year-to-year basis. And then also Julius Randle coming off a pretty significant injury. How is he going to come back from that? So your bigs position is going to be a little tested this year. But offensively, they improved with Mikal Bridges. They lost a few assets trade-wise, but I think in return, Mikal Bridges is still a young player, and I think he's going to add a lot to the team than what those 4 picks that they gave up were going to in the future. And I think, retaining OG, I think they overpaid for him, but I don't think they had a choice because if they didn't, I think he was probably going to go elsewhere. And he was exactly what they needed. He was able to come in there. He was able to play in Tibbs' system right away just because of the type of player he is. Just being a defender with Josh Hart, someone who can go in there and, be aggressive, be a ball guy, and just attack the ball every time he can. So I think they were another winner. And then one more for me was probably the Magic. Taking KCP away from the Denver Nuggets was big. I think they needed another guy like KCP to come in there to defend. He's going to be able to give you a couple buckets here and there when you need it. He's also got, just a lot of experience in the league. Playing on a championship team with the Nuggets, and then also playing very well as a guard with the Pistons early on in his career. So I think he's only going to add to them, and I think, the Magic are going to only improve this year as long as Paulo and Wagner just continue to be on the trajectory that they are.
My question before I start with mine, and this may be just like an ideal situation, but with the Thunder, I know that you talked about Hartenstein coming off the bench. Do you possibly see a lineup where Hartenstein and Chet start together, and Chet goes at the stretch 4?
I think it's very intriguing. Let me pull up the Thunder roster real quick. I just kind of want to see how they could go about this. But I definitely think it's intriguing because I definitely think, Chet's ability to put the ball on the floor and stretch the floor out as well is pretty interesting. The only thing is you're going to take Lou Dort out of the lineup in that situation, I think, because you're going to slide Jalen Williams up and Alex Caruso up as well, and that's going to kick Lou Dort out. But I think having Lou Dort come off the bench isn't technically a bad thing. But I also think, playing Chet and Hartenstein beside each other in the starting lineup could be a little bit of a factor because, they're playing minutes at the same time, whereas, Hartenstein can give Holmgren, a breather, and then you just keep going back and forth between those two, and you're having one in at a time that's, just ready to go and ready to get some blows. But I definitely think it's an intriguing lineup, and I think it would work. I think just for the Thunder, it's a matter of if you do that, then you just have to know at times that you're probably going to play a little bit of a small ball earlier on in the game, just because those two are going to need a breather at some point. They're probably going to need it at the same time at some point in the game.
The reason why I think about it is just for a defensive purpose because, yes, Chet gets some blocks, but he also gets moved around because he's pretty skinny. Like, whenever the Thunder will have to play the Nikola Jokic, even the Zubac, or even this past year the Derek Lively and Daniel Gaffords. Like, Chet got moved around a little bit, and That's why I think, like, and even in, like, regular season, like, whenever they're playing, like, the 76ers and having to guard Embiid, like, Chet got moved around a little bit at certain points, and I feel like Hartenstein can step in there and guard the more physical big, and then Chet can guard the, like, less bigger, like, 4. And that's just my thought process with it.
No, I agree. I definitely think we will see it this year. And we might even see it more times than not where they do have that starting lineup. But I will be interested to see how their play style, if it's affected, or if they continue to do the same thing with those two in there.
Yeah, I definitely think they're a winner, like you said. I think that the Knicks are a winner, like you said. Getting Mikal Bridges, I know, is a big price, but that team chemistry is going to go through the roof, and all those dudes are solid together anyway. They won, like, I know they won at least one NCAA championship together. I don't know how many were on both teams, but they're born to win with each other, it seems like. Like you said with the center situation, losing Hartenstein, I'd like to see what the Knicks do with their bigs. I was surprised that they kept Randall along this long, because I feel like they started winning more once he got hurt, at least in the playoffs. But maybe he sees, like, hey, I need to play more team ball and help us win, and so he changes his ways with that. Two that come to mind, and one of them is going to sound biased, and I'll just get that out of the way, is the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks signed Klay Thompson. They also signed Najee Marshall and traded away Tim Hardaway Jr. to get Quentin Grimes. Hardaway Jr. kind of fell apart in the playoffs, and all of the Mavericks just, like, wrote off Hardaway Jr., kind of including myself, just because he did not make consistent shots. And so getting a pretty solid shooter and good guard with Quentin Grimes was good. And also Hardaway Jr.'s contract was pretty big. You signed Klay Thompson for less than Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract, which I'm pretty sure that's right. I'll take that any day of the week. Klay Thompson doesn't need to be prime Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson needs to be spot-up shooter Klay Thompson who plays a decent amount of defense, and that's good. You've got Luka Doncic and you've got Kyrie Irving, who are main ISO ball players. They are going to get double-teamed at certain points whenever one of them has 40. And Klay Thompson is going to be open. And Klay Thompson is one of the best off-ball, like, getting open players. So he knows his spots from playing with Steph Curry, with playing with Kevin Durant. And so he'll get his looks. And he knocks down in a consistent range, or at 40%. So it's not like Klay Thompson is washed. I know that he had a bad last game with the Warriors, but still shooting 40% from 3, that's someone that the Mavericks needed in the finals. Another person that the Mavericks needed in the finals is Najee Marshall, who is a good 3-and-D player. He will take place of Derrick Jones Jr., who left and signed with the Clippers, I believe. He can hit threes, and he can play good defense. That's what the Mavericks needed. The Mavericks, who are coming off an NBA Finals appearance, got better, I think. The last team that I'll talk about with the free agency winners is the Philadelphia 76ers. They signed Andre Drummond, signed Paul George, signed Eric Gordon, extended Kelly Oubre, extended Maxey, signed Caleb Martin, and waived Paul Reed. I think that they got 100% better. Of course, signing Paul George will make you better, but Andre Drummond is still has productive years with rebounding, because they don't really need Andre Drummond to score. They just need him to rebound. Eric Gordon can be the spot up 3 guy whenever Maxey, Embiid, or even Paul George are being doubled. I know they let Buddy Hield walk, but Buddy Hield didn't really have a productive time with the 76ers. Kelly Oubre had a solid year this past year with the 76ers, and I think that he can help them. Of course, re-signing Maxey to an extension was their top priority. And then Caleb Martin plays a good role that Caleb Martin needs to play. And the prime example of that is with the Heat in 2023, where he almost got Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and he averaged like 16 or something like that versus the Celtics, and he was just like the guy that if you need an open shot, just pass it to him and he'll knock it down. So I think that the 76ers got solid role players along with Paul George to make them a really good contender. So what do you think about those?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I definitely think Dallas. I think if Clay can somewhat resemble what he was back in the Warriors dynasty run, I think that's a steal of a sign for them. I think, for what he's produced the last couple of years on top of his injuries, do I think what they've paid is a little high? Maybe, but does he go there if they don't pay him that much? Probably not. But I think it adds just another scorer for Dallas that they desperately needed. I also think, me being a Pelicans fan, sad to see Najee go. He's earned everything that he's gotten now. Coming from Xavier, I don't think anyone saw him doing what he's done in the league so far. He's going to be a tremendous defensive asset to the Mavericks, especially, just with how much they struggled defensively as the playoffs went on. I agree with you on that. I think the one thing for the 76ers is, can Paul George produce? Can he produce, and will he be the third player, or will he be the second, or will he be their go-to player, with Embiid and Maxey? Because you just paid Maxey a max contract. Embiid's under a max contract. Will Embiid stay healthy? Will there be too much stardom in Philly? Will there be too much pressure? Because, we've all been talking about the process for, it seems like, 10, 15 years now. When is it going to actually, when is it going to work? But I agree with you on your winners. I do. I think there's just a little bit of question marks, on if they're going to work.
Right. I mean, Embiid hasn't made it past the second round, like, ever. So it's definitely a big question mark, and that's my main concern with the 76ers as well. I think that they've got a great team on paper. I just want to see them, on the court together and, see how they mesh well before I make, predictions of, they're going to the finals or something like that. But who are some of your losers?
I think, you and I would both agree that the Lakers are probably the biggest loser of free agency.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron got what he wanted. He got, J.J. Redick as the head coach, which I do think J.J. is going to be really good. He's got an incredible basketball mind. I love listening to him speak on his podcast and just breaking down some plays and breaking down some films on some clips I hear every now and then. So I do think he's going to be, a pretty good coach. Whether it be his first year or not, I don't know. But I do think he's going to succeed in the league as a coach. But, LeBron, he gets his coach. He gets his contract. He gets Bronny selected in the second round. But he said he was going to take a pay cut to get, a high-touted free agent. Well, you missed on Valanciunas. You missed on DeMar DeRozan. You missed on Paul George. You missed on every big free agent you're going for. And you also didn't get any more depth to add to the team. You're getting to 39 years old this year. You're going to be 40 next year. You're getting to a point where, you're going to have some help with you. And, if you when you strike out that big on 3 big-name athletes, and everyone knows that you desperately wanted one of them, that's just, and you play in the LA market with the Lakers, that's a big miss in free agency. Even with Dan Hurley, I think they missed that on him too, and you can count that as a miss in the free agency as well. Um, so I think the Lakers really disappointed because, they got lucky with Connect, as the 17th pick in the draft. But if they didn't get him, this team, a lot of people would look at as, maybe going backwards this year, not even maybe making the play-in tournament in what could be LeBron's last year in the league. So I think they had a lot of room to grow, but instead they went backwards just with how they handled the offseason. I think another team that was a loser to me was probably the Clippers, just because, you weren't willing to pay Paul George Kawhi money, and I think Paul George has been more serviceable as a player lately than Kawhi because of, the injury history with Kawhi. I mean, he's even been told to sit out of the Olympics now because of injuries. And, you've got people making jokes about load management. And then you paid James Harden a good amount of money this offseason, too. I thought James played, pretty good this season. I thought he played well in spurts in the playoffs, but I don't think he played well enough to earn that big of a contract. You had some teams that were looking to get Russell Westbrook off your hands, and I thought you could have traded him to get some young players or some assets pick-wise in the draft. I think you missed an opportunity on that. I like the addition of Derrick Jones Jr. I think he adds some athleticism to your team to replace Paul George, but again, he's not Paul George. He's not going to go out there and score and take over a game like Paul George could. So I don't think the Clippers won free agency as well. And then I also think the Warriors lost. Losing Clay, even though you got Buddy Hield, it's an end of a dynasty. I definitely think that Clay could have made it work there to finish out his career there. But, some things happened that, just didn't make it work, unfortunately. And I think, Buddy's been one of the top 3-point scorers in the league for a while now. And so I think it is a good addition. But I also think you lose some defense there with Buddy Hield and losing Klay Thompson in his position. And also just don't think they really hit on anyone else big free agent-wise. I mean, I like the additions of Kyle Anderson and D'Anthony Melton defensively, but you don't add anything to help Curry on the offensive end. Draymond's old. He can only do so much. I mean, he's still a good player, but now you're going to be relying on the development of, your two young players in Podziemski and Kuminga, and just hoping that they're going to be who you thought they were when you drafted them. So those are my three.
To be honest with you, I had the exact same teams. All three of them. I'll start with the Warriors because that's who you just talked about. They waived Chris Paul, let Clay walk. They signed Kyle Anderson, signed Buddy Hield, and signed D'Anthony Melton. Like you said, they did not get Curry any more scoring help. I know that they were close to signing Paul George, but they did not. They are putting all their eggs in the basket, basically, with Podziemski and Kuminga. I think that they've gotten every ounce that they could out of Wiggins. I don't think that Wiggins will produce like he did during the finals run. Like you said, Draymond is going to average 6-7 points a game. Curry's going to need to average 50 for them to make the playoffs at this rate. Maybe their player development goes good, but yeah, I feel like they didn't get better at all. If this is the team that they go into the year with, I don't see them making the play-in. But I know that that's a bold statement, and I know that Curry's a winner, but this is one of the worst teams that Curry has started the year with, besides the year that he broke his hand, and they were awful. Next team that I'll talk about is the Lakers. They extended D'Lo, they extended Max Christie, Colin Castleton, LeBron, and they lost Taurean Prince. Like you said, they just didn't get any pieces that could really help them at all. They, like you said, got bailed out with Dalton Connect basically falling into their lap. They're going to need him to ball out this year for them not to look stupid, basically, with this free agency, because they struck out on everyone. I thought for sure that after all this, DeMar DeRozan was at least a lock for them, and they couldn't even get him. It's crazy how none of these guys, a couple of them showed interest, but none of them were even rumored to have a meeting with the Lakers. It was that bad. The fact that the Los Angeles Lakers are not getting free agents is ridiculous. And then the other team, the other Los Angeles team, the Clippers. You lost Paul George, extended Harden, signed Mo Bamba, extended Kawhi, lost Mason Plumlee, and lost Daniel Tice. The smaller thing with this team is that they just lost both of their backup bigs who produced well. So if Zubac gets hurt, they're kind of screwed. Unless they got a big who I forgot. Of course, Mo Bamba's in there, but Mo Bamba hasn't really produced a whole lot. Kawhi played the most games that he's played in a while this past year, but like we talked about, he's injury prone, and his best days are behind him. Now, he's still a bucket, but he's not Raptors Kawhi. He's not Spurs Kawhi. This is Kawhi that will play 5 games in a row and have to sit one, it seems like. They definitely overpaid for Harden. Harden had a good couple playoff games like you talked about, but he averaged 16 points per game this year. I don't think a dude averaging 16 points per game should be getting $35 million a year. But I know that the TV deals are going up and the contract prices are inflating, but still, Harden will have a lot to prove this year with just his leadership. We'll see if that actually takes a step forward or not. And with leadership, he also re-signed Russell Westbrook. Westbrook has just been maintaining the bench. He hasn't been doing a whole lot. Whenever he comes off the bench, I think he averaged 11 points, but he's nowhere near prime Westbrook. So it seems like the Clippers are just getting a lot of guys that were former shells of themselves, basically. And you lost your main consistent scorer with Paul George, who I need to look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure that Paul George averages 70-something games a year, compared to Kawhi probably averaging around 50. Let me scroll down here. So, last year he played 74 games. Now, the past couple of years, they've been doing load management, so it's kind of hard to, keep up with. So he played 74 games last year. And then Kawhi Leonard, let's see, I know that Kawhi played a good amount of games this past year, but Kawhi played 68 this past year and then has averaged around 53 in the past couple of years. And then he played only two playoff games where he averaged 12 points per game. So the Clippers lost their most consistent guy with Paul George, most consistent scorer, and because Kawhi has averaged 2 playoff games for the past 2 years, I just think that the Clippers think that it's 2016, and I don't know how they'll do this year, but we'll see with James Harden's leadership because Kawhi isn't speaking up. But what do you think about my points? I know that we agreed on the teams, but what do you think?
Yeah, really like your last point there with, Kawhi isn't going to, he's not the leader type of guy. He's not going to go in there. He's not going to run the offense. He's not going to tell you what to do. He's not going to tell you to listen to coach. He's not going to go in there and demand the ball. He's just not that. He's just not that guy. He's a very low esteem guy. He just wants to go in there. He wants to play basketball. That's all he wants to do. And I don't think James Harden is the type of guy that you want him to be the leader on the team. And then also Westbrook. I think he can be a leader for a team, but I don't think he can be the leader for that team. I don't think it's the right situation for him. I don't think it's been the right situation for him. And I don't think it's been the right situation for him since KD left the Thunder. And so I don't see who is going to be the leader on that team. I don't know what direction they're going with. I think they're lucky to have Ty Lue there to be the coach because he's an incredible coach and, he's going to be able to pull a rabbit out of the bag. But I think there's only so much he's going to be able to do with this roster that I think, we'll see another first-round exit or another play-in for them. But other than that, I just don't see them doing much after how they handled this offseason.
Yeah. Well, we have two more small things to talk about before we wrap it up here. One, and I forgot to talk to you about this before we started our show, but did you see the new NBA media rights deal that came out?
Yeah, I saw that today. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I don't remember exactly what it was, but it is an insane deal, bringing a lot of revenue to the league, and also I don't know how good it is for fans because now you've got to subscribe to like 5 different things just to watch games, and sometimes you can't even get it because it's blacked out because it's too close to the market, which I think is the dumbest thing ever. But yeah, if you want to break it down real quick, we can talk about it real quick.
Yeah, I'll double check it to look it up. I'm pretty sure it's an 11-year, $76 billion deal. And yeah, let me look it up real quick. Yeah, it's finalized with ESPN, Amazon, and NBC. $76 billion is correct on there. And I'm pulling up the ESPN thing.
I understand why the NBA is doing this because, you've got to make money somehow. And so, the best way to do that is through these TV deals because they're going to, just offer you insane deals. I hate that they did not get anything done with TNT. I understand that, they can still do something with TNT. But, I mean, now that you have deals with ESPN, NBC, Amazon, I saw Peacock's going to have a few games as well. Amazon Prime is going to have a few games. It's just like, where is there going to be room for TNT? And now you've kind of forced TNT's hands to where, Charles Barkley is saying this is going to be his last year. And without him, TNT isn't going to be what it is. So I think that hurts the fans because, all the fans want is for the NBA to listen to them. And, a lot of leagues have not been listening to their fans for quite a while. And I think it's hurting them. And, ratings might say one thing, but, I think the diehard fans are always going to watch, and so you're not going to lose them. But we're getting less enthusiastic about, watching the sport because you're just taking away a lot of what has made the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're talking about for the 25-26 season that there could be games on 5 days a week, which is a interesting dynamic, which that'll range upon different streaming platforms. I think that's good for the fans, but having to pay for 3 or 4 different streaming things is not very fun.
Yeah, I mean, credit to NBA. I mean, they're making $6.9 billion a year for the next 11 years.
last thing that we'll talk about, and just because of how recent it is, you said that you watched some of the highlights from the Team USA versus Canada exhibition. What do you think about the team?
Oh, it's a great team. It was kind of rough to watch the start of the game, and how just slow they were to get off. They started out 0 for 6 before of course Steph Curry hits a 3 to get him started. I mean, how else would we start the scoring for Team USA when a Steph Curry 3? I thought the lineup was interesting, starting Holiday, Curry, Embiid, James, and Booker. I definitely thought Edwards was going to start, with how he was talking about being the number one option. But I kind of like him come off the bench, get a different dynamic off the bench that these other teams aren't going to have. And then I thought Tyrese played a really good game. His stats offensively don't pop off to you. I mean, he was 1 for 4 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, but he had 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, 1 block. He had the highest plus-minus of anyone on the court. And I think he also brings in a different dimension off the bench. And I think the reason why they start Holiday, and he's one of my favorite NBA players. That's why I'm a Pelicans fan today. He just adds a different dimension defensively. He's a bigger body guard. He can score the ball all 3 ways. He's probably one of the better two-way players in the NBA behind Kawhi whenever Kawhi is healthy. I do think it's interesting. We might see a switch with AD and Joel, just because Embiid didn't look too good out there, and he's still coming back from a pretty good injury from the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a switch there. Is KD going to be healthy? I saw a pretty interesting point today. I think it was on ESPN. It was like, Jaylen Brown, did he get snubbed right now? Maybe not. But if KD doesn't come back, then yeah, I think he got snubbed, and I think it was the wrong decision to put Derek White on the team, because now you're taking away KD from the team, and you could have had Jaylen Brown on there. That could have been a perfect replacement for him, probably, just with how they play offensively. But I thought it's probably going to take a little bit of time for them to gel together and to play how we all expect them to play. I think they played probably the second best or the third best team out there. It's either them or France for second and third. And I thought they handled it pretty well. Canada did struggle a little bit from their star players. Jamal, 2 for 8 from the field. Shea, 3 for 10. Dwight Powell did absolutely nothing. Dylan Brooks might have been their best player that game, which I don't want to say that, but I kind of have to. But I definitely think this is going to be a really good Olympics for the USA. I will be interested to see, though, how they play against France if they get that opportunity.
Yeah. I think you made all good points. I think the couple players that looked good was, of course, Curry looked good. I thought that Booker looked good. I thought Tatum looked good. Embiid looked a little rough, but like you said, he's coming off a pretty significant injury. So him just getting up and down the court and playing against they're not terrible bigs, but they're NBA bigs. They're not all-stars though, with Powell and even Kelly Olynyk. And Embiid did foul out, which was kind of rough to see, but it is the first game. I don't think anyone should overreact about any player. If KD is able to come back and play, then I think they'll be good. But if not, then they'll adjust. With Derek White not playing too, Derek White will provide some good minutes. I thought the starting 5 was a little interesting, like you said. Anthony Edwards did look good too, but I didn't know what Steve Kerr was thinking with that starting 5. But of course, like you said, Drew Holiday provides a lot more than just scoring. Even though that he's 6'4", and his defensive presence makes him feel a lot taller, which that's probably why they threw him in there. I don't know when they play next, but of course I'll tune in and you'll tune in too. You got any closing statements?
I don't have too much to say, but I do find it interesting. We've all been talking about Jalen Brown and how he might have got snubbed, and he might have been over Derek White. He just won the SB for best championship performance, so I think he's just getting a lot more to put in his arsenal to fire back at some people. So I definitely do think that Derek White is a good player. I think he's probably going to come in here and play 10 minutes a game, maybe. But I do think Jalen deserved to have a spot on the team, especially how he played this year. And he's gotten a lot of criticism for how he lacks ball handling a little bit. But he's earned it, and I think it'll just be on chip in his shoulder for this coming year.
I think it's ridiculous how Jalen Brown is getting all the criticism whenever, I know that Tatum's a good player, but Jalen Brown has been outperforming Jason Tatum recently. But now Jalen Brown's just in the shadow again. Which, that's what I thought originally would cause Jalen Brown to possibly leave, but they made it work and won a championship. But I think that he deserves to be on Team USA as well.
Yeah. Obviously, they'll win no matter what, I think. But I do wish he was a part of the team. I think he developed really well this year.
Yeah. Well, that does it for our NBA mid-off-season podcast, you can call it. Hopefully you all in the audience enjoyed our takes. Landon, I appreciate you hopping on once again, and talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, see you.
Okay, bro.
And that does it for the episode. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace.